land and the water and the sky. But color doesn't
He's
just
7.
make things look pretty. Nature uses color in many ways.
Color.
That's why I brought up that show, Life After Death, because it's about, there was a part about colors. And one guy, when he came back after visiting death, he started just drawing colors. He never drew before. He started drawing everything in colors.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's been a scattered week last week. And I mean, it's Monday right now, but I still feel very scattered. And I used to wake up with anxiety every morning, right? I've been waking up with anxiety every morning again. Not that intense, like panic attack anxiety, but anxiety every morning because I haven't been able to do anything for myself or for my business. It's just like really getting through the week. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a couple of people and they were feeling the same thing. And you were mentioning that for you, your week was like interesting. This is the word that comes to mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Just that's kind of like the keywords there was we're getting through the week, and that's kind of the stance we took. We're like, you know what, let's just give ourselves a break. There's like so much going on that's influencing collective energy. People are fighting. It's just like, let's just, if we need to just tune out and marathon things on Netflix for a little while, we're entitled to.
Yeah, that's where I found myself, and I didn't really even have the energy to try to figure out as to why it could be happening in terms of the collective. It was just I am going to be doing this because my being is telling me to sit down and just watch. Like I watched I don't remember the name of it, Life After Death, I think it's called, or something along those lines on Netflix. I watched that in one day, and they're 40-minute episodes, right? So I watched that in one day. I think 7.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I just really just did nothing aside from acting on my intuitive hits. That's the only way I would describe it, right? Intuitively, I watched that show because it's new, it just came out, or for me, it came up on top. Like, oh, I guess we're going to be watching this because I just finished another show before that. And then, yeah, and then I told you that I got into crypto. It's something that I've been curious about for a couple of years, ever since I was introduced with an opportunity to invest in Bitcoin and I turned it down. And now I'm looking at Bitcoin and the cost at which I would have had an entry in 3 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, why didn't you do it? And I've been curious about it, but terrified. And I know that my morning anxiety was and still is part of this new journey because it's so new and it's uncomfortable in a way for me, right? Because I know that there's so much on the other side of it once you get in there, and I already understand quite a bit just being in there in a week, but that's what caused me anxiety and yeah, and then not doing anything the whole week. All the shoulds come up, and then I had another realization. I'm like, all the shoulds, all those voices that say should, none of them are mine. None of them are mine. So every time a should comes up, I go, who said that? Who said that? Because it's not me. I would not be shooting at myself because we all, each and every one of us, we love ourselves. We really do. We're just not aware of it yet because of all the other people's voices in our head that just keep spinning and spinning and spinning. Um, yeah, that's where my head is at. Where's yours?
I mean, that's just so beautiful. Like, we actually do love ourselves, and those shoulds are coming from different people at different times in their lives and their journeys, like where maybe they haven't accessed self love, so they want our behavior to fit into a narrative that's going to make them feel more comfortable. So it's just so beautiful to pause and recognize we love ourselves. I was watching a revisiting a video. I was so excited that it's still up on YouTube. I don't know if it's supposed to be, but it was from this summit called Returning to Earth, Becoming Fully Human. And it was hosted by Brooke Medicine Eagle. And she had on her, as her guest Sandra Ingerman, who is one of my favorite resources for all things shamanism. And yeah, it was Sandra. She was saying that if we don't love ourselves, then it's like insulting creation and insulting the creator. So loving ourselves helps to show that love for all of creation. I thought that was such a beautiful way to put it.
It is. It's like we are one. We all have the same DNA. It's just structured together differently. The way that I understood it is that, like, think of you have 1,000 Lego pieces. And how many possible combinations can you put those Lego pieces together? Oh, like unlimited. You know what I mean? And that is what our DNA is. We share our DNA with every living being. It's just been put together differently. And like however the Lego pieces fit in different shapes and different sizes, that's how we all are. So it would make sense that it's like if I go out there and I'm in awe of the clouds, of the trees, of the grass, and I love it, and I say I love you, tree, I love you, grass. What I'm really saying is I love you, Yana, right? That I love myself. But nobody really recognizes that in that moment, or at least most people don't recognize that in that moment. And that's what happens. And when you look at another person, you say, I love you. What you're really saying is that you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really, to me, it's kind of like a feeling. I understand it on a, this is what I mean when I say cellular level. I understand it as my whole being. And sometimes it's difficult to put it into words to help others to understand, especially when my mind is like, the way I would explain that my mind is stoned. This is how I've been feeling last week, the whole entire week. And I wasn't, but that's how it feels. Like it just feels clouded and stoned and tired from everything that's really going on around the world. And we as sensitives, we pick that up and not necessarily always are aware. But if we allow ourselves rest,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever rest means to you, right? To some people, rest might mean get out in the nature and go nuts, right? Play in the snow. To others, it might be taking a bath or shower or sleep all day, every day, all week, or binge watch Netflix, right? To me, I call that education as well, because I learned quite a bit from that. Um, to each their own.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a great topic. How we as empaths and our fellow empaths and highly sensitive beings can bring clarity and rest and self-care when we're likely absorbing a lot of the chaos of the world currently.
Yeah. That is. And how do we do that? Right? How do you do that? Nice earrings, by the way. I keep wanting to say it ever since I saw you. I'm like, I like those. If you had a kitty, you'd be like, ding, ding,
Thank you. A friend got them for me.
ding.
So I figured I'll try them out. Earrings hurt my ears, but I can keep them in for a little while. So perfect for a Zoom session.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I'll take them out immediately after. Yeah, I mean um it's I think it's part of our karmic journey as empaths to figure out how to ground and be with our own energy, because highly sensitive beings and empaths, we're from the dimension of peace and harmony. That's why we're able to detect the harmonics. But it's also why we are able to detect the pain and suffering that can pull us from the peace and instill within us this exaggerated sense of responsibility to heal others and heal the world. You know, we come into this world, it's kind of foreign to us because it is so chaotic and aggressive and oppressive and violent. And that's all completely foreign to an empath's being. So we come in here not really understanding, why are people so aggressive? Why are people so violent? Why are people so harsh and cruel? And we also can perceive through it to what's more efficient. So to us, it's just, it makes no sense. It's inefficient. If we stop fighting, we can communicate at deeper levels and achieve much more. And so we have this understanding somewhere within us, and it just unfolds in all these different ways. Like for me, before I began working with a coach and learning how to separate my energy from the energies of others, I was subconsciously or unconsciously taking on all this responsibility of fixing and solving that wasn't mine. So learning to detach from that, from the journeys of others, and just keep trying to just remain peaceful, remain calm. Like throughout the week, when our schedules were so off, I just told Chris, I was like, I think my job this week is to just keep calm and bring calm to anyone who comes into my sphere. And that's it. That was my job this week.
Yeah,
Nothing beyond.
yeah. Honestly, all I heard you say on repeat over and over in different ways is that sense of responsibility that we have as empaths, because when something comes into our energy field, whether we are aware of it, if it's ours or not, it takes over or could potentially take over if we allow it to. And that's heavy. Like, that is, if it could feel like a very heavy burden. That's how it really did feel for me last week, because I have this sense of responsibility I was also carrying on top of all those feelings and emotions that were mine, and I am aware that they're not mine, but at the same time, and I will honestly say right now, is I did nothing about it because I knew they're not mine. I know I have options on what I can do about it, how I can move past it, how I can release it and let go. But I didn't want to. I really did not want to. So I said, I'm just going to carry it. It's going to pass on its own. I'm going to do shit about it. Right. And it's fine. I'm saying this not to say that if you feel like you don't want to do anything about it and you want to carry it and then deal with it when it gets worse or it could potentially go away on its own, it does for me most of the time, then it's fine. The choice is yours. That was my choice. And the sense of responsibility I was also carrying is because I did, like I said, I did nothing for my business the whole entire week. 5 days, right? I don't count the weekends. That's not my work days. I mean, on the weekends, I've just been helping my husband. This is how we finished the basement. I did all the edging. I don't know if you guys can see like all the edging, painting, all of that on here, on there, because the top of the ceiling is white. The top of the ceiling there is also white. I can't reach, but the edges are all this color. So I was doing all the edging, and it took me 4 days to do. 2 days last weekend and this weekend, and I finished it all. Now my husband would have liked it to be done a lot quicker, but no. I'm doing it. I'm doing it at my pace, and I'm recognizing where boundaries are coming in. Right? Um, I'm doing it on my pace. I'm doing it my way. Don't rush the process. Don't rush the process. Right? In the end, there's like I'm looking everywhere, and I looked everywhere. There's no touch-ups that need to be done.
Yes.
And that's my weekend. On the week, my sense of responsibility is with my business, right? Of course, I was showing up for my clients and I was 95% present, right? Because the other 5% is still like, right? Up in the sky, in the clouds somewhere. And feeling responsible creates guilt, a lot of guilt, a lot of guilt to a point where just the word guilt itself, I can feel it already tingling in my heart and in my throat, and I don't like it. I really don't like feeling guilty. So, what do we do about it? As human beings, as business owners, as employees, as parents, as back to human beings, as human beings, what do we do with this guilt?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a
We
lot.
all, we all struggle with it. We all struggle with feelings of guilt and shame. And for me, it just helps to talk about it and share it openly and honestly. Like just this morning, I was feeling a lot of shame about financial situations and just being seen, like sharing with my partner the shame that I was experiencing and just having him see me with compassion in his eyes was really helpful. Seeing that I'm a human being struggling with these really heavy thoughts and feelings, and they're causing me to walk around the apartment like with my head down, not really looking him in the eye, and then to finally sit down and talk about it and communicate was just so helpful. And it didn't cure it, it's still there, but at least it's not overwhelming. So I'm not beating myself up. It's yeah. So for me, talking about it, being witness, just really helps so much. And then also just choosing the now, like, all right, you know what can I do in the now that will bring medicine to this, like when it's guilt and shame, both. Sometimes the
Fine
same
line.
thought,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes one thought will bring up both of those emotions. But recognizing, okay, I can't, usually it's based in behaviors or actions from the past, or lack of action from moments in the past, and I'll get to the point where I'm like, all right, that's enough. Like, what can I do now? If I'm feeling guilt over this or shame over this, like something I share pretty often when I talk about my journey of becoming a coach, my choice to become a coach was born from my deepest shame and my deepest guilt of not having been a strong advocate and a strong sister for my brother, the way that a coach was an advocate for me. And so there's so many things we can do to just help alleviate that guilt.
You just gave a beautiful example of what guilt and shame can actually create and what it can add to this world, right? Because guilt and shame, essentially, the way I translate it is pain and suffering, because you feel pain and you suffer through the guilt and shame, and that guilt and shame, it hurts, mentally, physically, emotionally. It can take over our entire bodies. Guilt and shame is what brought me into my rock bottom as well, on top of the loss, on top of the experiences. But there was a lot of guilt and shame, which is level one. I and the only way that we can understand the the beauty of it is being in there and then getting out of there. That's the only way we can actually appreciate the beauty, and and then create something out of that pain and suffering. And you just allowed yourself to become a coach and help others to work through their pain and suffering, so they too can come out on the other side and embrace their gifts. Because the gifts, here's the thing: anyone listening, watching, whatever platform you are going to be listening this on, you do not find these gifts just laying around. Okay, you don't just turn around and say, oh, there it is, there's my gift, I'm going to take it, I'm going to use it now. You find those gifts through the difficult times, through experiencing guilt, through experiencing shame, through experiencing loss, through the moments of when when we doubt that love exists. That's the way that I would describe it. The moment that you doubt that love exists, that is your moment to try to unwrap that gift and see what that gift is in there for you.
I love that.
That's that. And I mean, it sounds nice, it sounds beautiful, and it sounds like it's easy to do. And I know it's not an easy thing to do. I know that it's not an easy thing to do, but I also know that it's not impossible. It really is possible. Just 3 years ago, I was completely crippled by guilt and shame, and self-worth was not even existent. And that's 3 years ago. That's not a really long time. But when I was there, I didn't think it was possible. I really did not think it was possible for me to wake up feeling happy and smiling. Now, last week is, of course, that's a whole different story. I'm not going to include that in there, but at the same time, I will include that in this right now, because it happened. It reminded me of where I was, and it reminded me I don't like that. But the severity of anxiety from when I used to wake up and vomit every single day to waking up with just a little bit and knowing that there's something is off. My body was also aching from. So the other thing I also just remembered, but I didn't remember in the beginning of the conversation, is I've been focusing on opening up my third eye even more, and I've noticed that I've been doing that about once a year around this time, kind of like on its own, and I started getting massive headaches. Massive headaches and pressure behind my eyes. It was one day it was my left eye. I'm like, yes, left eye. And then the next day was my right eye, just pressure behind there. And then it just traveled through my whole body. My whole body was like aching. So that's part of it as well. There's a lot in this equation.
Yeah.
All
Especially like we talk about feeling on a cellular level, and when you're going through cellular upgrades like that, the body takes on a lot of pressure.
Yes. Here's the way how I'm gonna explain it. Okay, we all exercise. Okay, we've all gone to the gym or did a massive run, and then the next day we woke up and we were in pain. Okay, we've all done that, whether as a child or as a mid-adult or adult or whatever. Okay, that's what happens. That's what our body goes through when we step into the new version of ourselves. Our body can physically hurt. Our body needs to rest. So I knew it was my healing period as well. So that's why I didn't really punish myself. I didn't beat myself up. And I know my time will come when I will be running and running and running with my business. But for now, I'm doing what I can because at the same time, I'm focusing on different income streams. I'm building a little too much at the same time. I know that myself, but at the same time, I also know that I am able to do that. So the body goes through this physical pain and suffering, essentially, that our body translates into something that most often it's not. At least for me and for all the clients that I have and all the people that I have spoken to, this is really what tends to happen is that the mind tells us, I'm sick. I'm coming down with something. No, you're not. Your body is just, it's almost like I'm seeing it just turns inside out. And then you need that new body to adjust your mind, your spiritual body and your mental body and then the physical body needs to readjust because if you have grown in here, right, and in here a little bit, your body needs to adjust to it. It's like that exercise that I said. It's your muscles aching, throbbing, they're in pain. That's what's kind of happening. I feel like I'm not finding the right words to describe it because I know I can do a better job, but for now, I'm gonna leave it here because I can't even like my mind is still clouded. Mm-hmm. Clouded with the healing, with the new stuff that's coming in, and I'm still like I'm feeling new um, new parts of me, but I need time to adjust to it and translate it and understand what it is. Mm-hmm. And that's what tends to happen for pretty much anyone I know that starts working on their third eye, um, alongside being an empath and what's happening in the world.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense because it's a whole new way of relating to our bodies. Like the third eye is connected to our intuition and really our spirit. Like that's where we can truly see where we can unite the mind and the body and the spirit. So we all have mind, body, spirit, all of us. No one, I mean, maybe the reptilians are lacking spirit, but for the most part, all humans have mind, body, spirit. And when we are just perpetuating unconscious or subconscious patterns, the mind and body get pretty used to the patterns and the day to day. And then when we train our minds to allow the spirit to come through and give our spirit permission to start steering the ship and practicing in the temple, like our bodies are our temples. So then with that third eye opening, we're seeing that value in allowing our bodies to be the temples for our spirits, whatever brings us joy, whatever brings us passion, bliss. And so the body needs to adjust because all of a sudden it's this new playground for spirit. And when it's been on autopilot based on our subconscious conditioning, it's gotten used to that. It hasn't had that much of a chance to think of it, to get used to, okay, I'm a temple now. I'm a temple for the spirit. I'm the home for the spirit on earth. And instead of I'm just a I'm kind of thinking of like technology or like industrial kind of system. Like the body gets used to just being this industrialized system for the mind when the unconscious and subconscious mind is in control. So it's, yeah, it's a whole new way of relating, and it does take the body time to adjust. And usually when we're going through upgrades, it's recommended to drink a lot of water.
Yeah, I've been thirsty a lot. And I will admit I haven't been drinking as much water as I even should be. But every time I find myself thirsty, typically when we're thirsty, that means the body's already dehydrated.
Mhm.
And I know that. But nobody's perfect, and I'm definitely not perfect, right? I don't believe perfection exists unless we look at ourselves and say, I'm perfect. So in that case, I'm perfect.
We're perfectly imperfect.
Exactly, right? Um, the other, because my mind is kind of all over the place, but at the same time, it is on point. Um, Mirror work came to mind, right? When we might be struggling to either get an answer, or feel and see ourselves, or most importantly, one of the things that I've noticed is accept ourselves. When we have a difficulty accepting ourselves, talk to yourself in the mirror, sit in front of the mirror, just look at yourself, admire yourself, find all the things that you like about yourself, and then find all the things that you love about yourself, because starting from what do I love about myself might be a little challenging. So starting with what do I like about myself, or what could I like about myself, just starting somewhere, right? And then again, my mind is jumping kind of backwards into the when the body feels a certain way and our mind tries to tell us that you're sick, you're coming down with something. That's it. That's the answer, right? Because based on the previous experiences, this is what has been happening. Nobody really taught us otherwise. But for the most part, that's because there is some misalignment. Or misalignment also means that something new is coming in and you have not aligned with it yet. So this is what I know is happening with me. So I don't, and I haven't used the words, and I don't want to use them now, but when you put the I am in front of certain words, right? Like, yeah, like cold or sick or whatever, right? I don't use those together in combination. And since I stopped using them, I haven't really experienced it. I haven't experienced being sick. Um, I've experienced like,
In the law of being, it recommends instead of saying I'm sick, we could say I could be feeling better.
yeah, see, and that's exactly where my mind jumped. It's like instead of saying and owning the sickness and saying that I am that, and perhaps you might be. And one of the things that, for example, the law of attraction teaches is say, I am better, right? I am healed. I am healthy. Now, here's a trick with this one. Your body knows when you're lying to it. So when you lie to it, it says, no, 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 you're still sick. You're not better. You are not better. Why are you lying to me? So what can happen is you can actually end up getting worse. So instead, just like Rachel said, I could be getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to feel better. That's only if it's true. Only if you're starting to feel a little bit better. I could be feeling better. I will get better. Well, I mean, that's true, but not that I am better, because if you're feeling like crap, that's a lie. Your body will know, and then they can essentially punish you for it. Right?
So important to bring up the body knows when we're lying, because when I first began mirror work or even affirmations, like when I was healing my PTSD, I knew that I needed to feel safe. I knew that was the first thing. I needed to bring safety to my being. And so I would sit on my yoga mat and recite my root chakra affirmations, like I am safe and secure. And my everything within me was rejecting it. I was crying, trying to save them, and I was like, this is when I first began, I was like, this is bullshit. This is never gonna. I'm never gonna believe the words I'm saying. But I stuck with it, and over time, when I finally brought myself, it took a lot to first even bring myself to that practice, because when we're that deep in guilt and shame, we become addicted to it, and that deep in survival mode, like I was addicted to survival mode. So which shame can keep us there in that survival mode. Um and there's always a reason. Like when I look back and I'm like, well, why didn't I have access to all these 7 levels of energy? I know that I do. Why did I stay at level 1 for so long? Why didn't I just go to level 5 right out, right in the beginning of the journey? And I think back to my will to survive, and because of the seeds that were planted in my psyche of self-hatred, my will to survive was hanging on by a thread. So if I had just showed up at level 5, embodying level 5, and I wasn't ready, uh something could put me over the edge, and it just be the last straw that I, let go of that clinging to survival. I could lose that instinct to survive. And so what that level 1 did was it kept me isolated, kept me withdrawn, so that I could heal. It protected me from harm. And so that's important to keep in mind. We've got to trust our own timing and be insistent on our own tempo and our own pace. So once I was ready, once I was able to say, okay, you know what? Nothing's going to change. No one's going to come save me. If I keep showing up this way, it's just going to be the same day after day. I know that. And so I finally brought myself to my yoga mat, sat down and started doing my root chakra affirmations. And at first, as I mentioned, they felt like lies. I was crying and I was like, I'm never going to believe this. This is bullshit. My body knows this bullshit. It's like felt like it was repelling them. It's like, why are you even saying this? You don't feel safe. You think everyone's out to get you. And then over time, though, I kept doing it every day. And then over time, I finally sat there on my yoga mat, stated my affirmations, and was embodying them, and then was able to move on to the next one. So it's so we can gauge where healing is needed based on how much our body is either rejecting or embodying the words we're saying.
Yes, that's a great point. And thank you for sharing that story. I wonder how many people can relate to that one. I most certainly can. Um, for me, it was the self-worth, right? The sheer thought of the 2 words self-worth um, that came to mind. It would just almost like break down the system, and I would cry. And I kept forcing them and forcing them and forcing them, and they wouldn't stick. To me, it would not stick. And what I ended up doing is finding ways of how I could feel like I am worth it. Finding different areas in my life where I am already noticing my self-worth. My self-worth is kind of connected to existence, right? To my own existence.
Yep.
And by finding these little areas, it could be as little as I make an awesome coffee for my husband and he loves it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gives me self-worth. Like I said, it could be as little as that, or as big as I'm the best mom that my kids could ever get, right? I'm the mom, I'm the exact mom that my kids need. I mean, that one took me a while to get to, but it starts. What happens is if you uncover one little area, the second one comes in, the second one, and then you can build an army of these self-worth messages for yourself that will help you to see that you are worth it. And then this is what I did without fully being aware of what I was doing. And then all of a sudden I look back and I have my self-worth behind me, with me, right?
Mm.
All these little tiny things that are seemingly, not important, but they are, because all these little things, they make up who we are.
That's so key to keep in mind, like who's judging them as important or not important. Like being the exact mom your kids need, that's huge. And I wish for all the moms to be able to access that thought, I am the exact mom my kids need. That's everything. The kids are the future. And I think so much of our self-worth comes from shifting um, shifting where we're attempting to receive approval or validation, and having faith that our internal validation is enough,
Yeah.
and that we don't need approval or validation from anyone or anything externally. Our awareness of our own ripple effect, are just by being who we are, is enough, and having faith that that's enough, that can fill that self-worth cup,
Yeah.
that faith alone.
And then eventually overflow, overfill that cup.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I've been hearing overflow, overflow, overflow over and over and over again from different parts, different conversations, different places, everywhere. And it really comes down to, in my mind, we all have a cup. Like, just picture yourself as a cup of water, and you want your cup of water to be full. And you might necessarily not want to give from that cup because it will start depleting. But when you keep adding to that cup, there's going to be an overflow. So giving from the overflow of that water, of that cup, of that energy that you have, that is when it's like it just keeps on coming and coming and overflows even more. That's kind of like where my mind is at. That by giving from the overflow, not from the cup itself, because that's your cup, right? But from the overflow, you will get more and more. Like the more you give, the more you get. If you give 2, you get 4 back, right? It kind of doubles. That's how I see this overflow working, and anything in life, really.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on where we're giving from. Like if we, like our own personal reserves are finite, but source energy, and this might be difficult to grasp if we haven't tapped into it yet, but source energy is infinite. So when we tap that source energy and just let it flow, then we have unlimited resources to share, unlimited energy to share, because we're sharing from, that's where our wisdom comes from. That's why it seems like all wisdom really saying the same thing, coming from the same place, is when we're tapping into that unlimited source energy, that it's available, and we can share it in all different ways, infinite ways. And it's when we're sharing from our own reserves that our cup starts, like the barometer starts going down, and eventually we hit burnout.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it depends a lot on ourselves. So everyone, check in with yourselves. Do a scan. You could even do a body scan. Just check in, mind, body, spirit scan, and it's okay to insist on your own tempo. Take time, rest, hydrate, binge watch if you need a distraction from your own mind. These are chaotic times, and we got to do whatever we can do to keep moving.
Yeah. And the one thing I will also add is go outside.
Yes.
Outside and connect with nature. Okay. I'm not saying to go and.
Reach it up there.
Okay. Okay. Can I reach it? I'm not saying to go. I'm gonna put the coat in. And put your feet in the snow or dive into freezing cold water. Now, if you do that, that's awesome. But just go out, right? Admire the beautiful world out there,
Yeah.
and just the way that
Mom, you even put a new one in the code notes.
it doesn't work. The way that anyone has kids, right?
Oh,
If you
Mom,
have
when I was doing the exercise, my hands literally lit on fire.
your hands lit on fire.
Literally, so I had to put them out. And
Did you touch a lighter? Probably a Kindle wick. Look at your children. Look at the children around you outside. If you don't have children yourself, or better yet, think back to when you were a child. When you were a child and you went outside to go and play, what did you think of the clouds?
Yeah.
What did you think of the trees? What did you think of the sky? Because the sky and clouds are a little different. What did you think of the water? What did you think of the outside world outside of your house? That childlike awe, like you're seeing it for the first time. Try that. At first, it might feel awkward, kind of like sitting with those mantras, right? It might feel awkward at first, but little by little, it becomes easier and easier and easier, and then it becomes just something that you do. And that's what really helps me to connect to what it is being a human.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah. I know Rachel has to go now.
that.
There's a call and somebody's touching a mouse upstairs because I can see my mouse going across the screen. I gotta bring everything down. So thank you for this conversation. I feel like it was all over the place, but at the same time, it really came back to living intuitively.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, it was nice. Woke me up a little bit. Give me a little bit of
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Same. Help to organize the thoughts.
Yeah, talking does, right? It helps us to process things. So anyways, you go on your next call. Have fun. Thank you. And I will see you next Monday. And by that point, I expect my energy to be where it normally is. Because right now it's like low. I don't know if anyone else could tell.
Both of us. It's been a weird week.
I know.
But yeah, we'll be back at it next week.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And thank you. Much love. Until next week. Bye.